Both divisional finals this week were insane, going down to the very last game with multiple teams in the hunt. Coincidentally enough, Peterbot and Poyo were the team that were winning it for someone else by taking down first place once again. The solo series is also starting to heat up. 4 out of 6 weeks are already done, which means some of the teams are already locking in that spot for the finals, and meta changes along with POI changes as well. Lots to get into, so let's just jump right into it. NA Central was completely insane this week again, because as we know, each week so far has come down to the very last game, and each week the team winning it all wasn't even in first, forced to have a comeback. Last week's it was Peterbot and Poyo, and this week it was no different. Through 5 games, we saw it was Reet and Muzz actually in first place by almost 50 points. And I mentioned Peterbot and Poyo because, again, they had a shot to win it all, but the only way to do that was to take down Reet and Muzz. And they did what they normally do. They went over to the resistance base. They didn't fight them just once, but they fought them 2 separate times, eventually taking them down. Unfortunately enough, though, it did not work out for Peterbot and Poyo because they ended up going down in Game 6 in 20th place, landing on the leaderboard overall in 10th place. I think their lowest finish as a duo in quite a long time, but that left it open for anybody. There was a chunk of teams to where if you won that game at that point, you won the entire tournament. And well, Ark and Khanada, they made it to top 3. So did Noxy as a solo. It was a legendary battle, and well, dreams and nightmares did happen. Khanada's game crashed, and instead of explaining it all to you, let's just roll the clip. So in another photo finish on NA Central, Ark and Khanada do find a way to take it all. Ark, one of the new players coming from NA West. Ark getting that chance to play with someone as experienced as Khanada and getting a moment right here to shine, and getting the tournament winning moment was absolutely everything. But Noxy and Mason do deserve a little bit of credit as well. They've been super consistent week after week after week. I eventually think they could find themselves with a divisional cup win. I say could because the playing field has never been harder, I feel like, when it comes to top NA Central teams. Talking about those is Ritual and Cold. They went 2-2 against Epic Well and Pump at Utopia City. Epic Well and Pump eventually left after Game 4's loss to Ritual and Cold off spawn to play NA West overall, which a good decision. We'll talk about that one later. But Cold and Ritual uncontested made those games count. They eventually ended up finishing 3rd overall in the tournament, which goes to show an uncontested Ritual and Cold is scary, and you cannot guarantee you can beat them off spawn either. Doesn't matter how long you've been at Utopia. Epic Well and Pump, I think, made that right decision to go over to NA West just because they weren't really able to close out a lot of those games to give them that 100% shots of at least going down to Game 6 like some of these other teams. I think eventually they'll show what they got. I think Epic Well and Pump is one of those teams that can surprise a lot of people with how good they can actually be when it counts. But talking about some of these other teams, Muzz and Reet, they went down early. I talked about that against Peterbot and Poyo, but they still had enough points and enough of a lead to land 4th place overall in the tournament. And the surprise team to land in the top 5, 5th place overall, is Sharkman and Yuz. I've actually casted a long time ago Sharkman playing in, I think, collegiate tournaments or some of those third-party tournaments, so glad to see him finally get a resurgence towards the top side of the leaderboard. Some notable other teams, Iamzo and Agers landing in 6th place, Clicks and Higgs in 7th, Rapid and Threats in 8th, Pete and Poyo, I talked about that 10th place finish, and then Acorn and Bolt landing in 12th. I think this is going to be an interesting kind of closeout to the rest of the year when it comes to duos, and I'm going to be asking that question to you guys. Let me know in chat. Are anybody going to be breaking up before FNCS, or do you guys think all of these teams are going to remain the same? Now on to NA West. At the top of the video, I mentioned both regions going down to the very last game. NA West was no different. It was Baka and Pars, it was Beastie and Peepotron, and it was Phoenix and B-Dog going down to the very last game. game, Phoenix and B-Dog, they were the ones that had a little bit of a lead going into game 6, but unfortunately going down around 32nd place, one elimination, they were unable to clutch up, and honestly it left for a show. Instead of it being full duos battle it out, it was Pars as a solo versus Beast as a solo, both of them going down, losing their teammates I should say, before they were able to get that first place threshold, so they were forced to kind of solo clutch it out. And B-Dog's 305-point lead, well, it kind of did not hold up. Beastie went down in 15th place with 2 elims to land him in 3rd place, but with a note, they only played 5 games overall in the finals. So you got to imagine, could they have taken first if they did have that 6th game? The leaderboard says that's quite likely, but it was Pars ended up clutching up 11th place, 2 elims to win with 310 points. That was only a 5-point lead. If somehow, some way, B-Dog and Phoenix were able to get eliminations or maybe get a few more placement points, they could have won the tournament overall. I talked about Epic Well and Pump leaving Central early to go play NA West in its entirety. Well, it's for good reason. They had a crazy 4 good games overall and landed in 4th place on that leaderboard, getting them a little bit of extra cash for their day. And then to kind of round out that top 5, you can kind of look at Skull and South, and they continued to show up. That was a 5th place finish overall on the day, going to show like, hey, even without Arc, we're still a force to be reckoned with. Defiable and CZR, a new duo, they landed in 6th and even got a VR on the day, which kind of shows a team's potential, especially against some of the best in their region. Come FNCS, I could see West being a little bit more competitive. You can't just throw us straight into the deep end right out of the gate. Now with a year underneath our belts, if it does come back, I expect this region to have a few contenders more than we did the year before. It's solo series time. After 4 weeks of the solo series, we're starting to get a clear picture of what our finals lobby is going to look like. There's 6 weeks of competition overall with your top 4 weeks counting. So these next 2 weeks are just to build upon your kind of points that you had over the weeks before. Can you break some of those records? Peterbot this week around not only got 1st place, but broke his previous world record in terms of points. He got 532 points. This essentially not only locks him in for finals, but he is #1 on the solo series leaderboard with 1,754 points. And 2nd place went on over to Agers this time around, who's also locked in his spot for the solo series finals. And in 3rd, Poyo locked in his spot as well. Poyo actually has been playing absolutely crazy in the solo series. To start his tournament off in 5 games, he either won the game or died off spawn, showing how crazy he actually is, winning 3 of his first 5 games. Joji and Higgs also round out our top 5 for this week. With 4 weeks done though, we can kind of see and get a peek at the solo series leaderboard and what players have qualified and which ones need to step up these coming weeks. But here's a quick look at the top 9 teams on Central. All of these teams have essentially locked in their spot for the solo finals. Right now, teams are aiming for above 1,250-ish points. If you played 4 weeks already, you should be looking to break your own records from your previous weeks. So go ahead and look at those. That is Central, at least, by the way. In West, we kind of saw a variety of unknown players placed in the top 10 this week, with notable finish from Minute in 2nd, Ak in 4th, Haju in 5th. This is why I love solos though, because although I'm not super in depth with every single player and every change that comes out in solos, it at least give players a chance to shine. I know so many players that are looked at as tier 1 pros kind of got their start, or at least their moments to shine in solos. As we look at the top 9 for solos in NA West, this is where you start to see a lot more of those familiar names rather than the weekly finals itself. Ratgun holding it down in 1st place with 1,366 points. He essentially has locked in his spot for the solo finals, qualifying along with Xenon and Phoenix, who we talked about in the duos portion earlier on this tournament, showing that he is a true force to be reckoned with overall on the region of West. Someone I'm going to keep my eyes on throughout this entire thing going into FNCS next year, with School rounding out the top 5. 5 on that overall leaderboard. All of these guys kind of locking in their spot. As you can see though as well, Ark coming in 77th place. I'm not sure if his spot's locked in left, but he definitely has 2 weeks left to go. While the point threshold is lower on West than it will be on Central, that kind of leaves it a little bit more to mystery and a little bit more to, does this mean enough? Did I get enough points to qualify? And so that's what I'm going to be looking at, which teams have a chance to qualify in West on the solo series. Maybe we'll see some Central players as well, because I do know once they get done with their tournament, they do attempt to qualify on West as well. So when we get to week 5, maybe week 6, we'll look at and go over every single solo series team or solo that qualified for the finals. Since the last time I talked about changes coming to Fortnite, there's been a ton of changes coming across the most recent update. And well, the POIs have changed, IDAs have changed, old Storm Surge is back. Thankfully, they didn't go with whatever they were trying, but at least they're trying something. But I'm glad this old Storm Surge is back. New POIs, Bugs, Waters Breach, Harmony Hills, Rangers Ruin got reworked into Rangers Rest, Utopia City is back, and Dreamy Domain. Some of the other changes as well is there's no more OXR ranks, so you don't have to worry about ranking up. There's no more bugs because there's no reason to rank up. There's no more medallions and no more mythic exotics. So all the results I talked about for the solo series and the divisional finals, that was with entirely no medallions and no mythics in the game, which gives a little bit more of an even playing field to these POIs, to some of these teams landing all around the map. The capture flag changes have come through. You not only mark players, it also marks loot, but instead of taking as long as it does when you capture kind of by yourself standing on it, if you emote, it captures 3 times as fast. So we're seeing throughout these divisional cups, teams that are contested using that flag as a focal part of their strategy, because not only do they get loot that pops out, their enemies are marked, and if they aren't, that means they're a certain distance away to not get marked. There's some drone changes that means more POIs now have a chance for those drones with the extra loot to land over there, which means again the even playing field this season with a lot of these changes is what I'm really liking. So if you don't necessarily land at one of the best POIs on the map, you still have a chance to get a good amount of loot or at least rotate in. Obviously you'll be looking at more of those center POIs because everything's more even. Now we'll be looking at positioning that changes up and makes these POIs more different than the other. Maybe some material count as well if you have access to that metal, if you have access to that brick. But overall, I think these are some good changes. No more overpowered POIs in the game, which gives everybody that chance to succeed. So even though you might have Peterbot landing and taking what people think is the best POI, you still have more of a chance landing on the outskirts, especially if you do get those zone pulls throughout the tournament. But this video was jam-packed, and I'm eager to hear from you guys. Let me know your thoughts on the duo and solo finals. Who do you guys think is the best from each of these regions that we talked about? What are your thoughts on some of these map changes? I didn't even mention the mask that is now in the game that we all talked about needing mobility. So let me know your thoughts on that. And please let me know what you guys think about these videos overall. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Beep, beep.